Yo, 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 what is going on, Patriots peeps? We are back, and we are here to review the 2024-25 NFL season. I'm back here with my guy, Aiden Hauser. How we feeling?
Not good. Not good, Soor. Not good.
Why? We won. The Patriots won. That's great.
The one win that we didn't need. The one time this season I was quietly cheering against my beloved Pats to get the first overall pick, and then we win.
I don't support tanking. Like it's not in principle. Like this entire season, I kept rooting for them when they were 3-7, 3-8, 3-9, 3-10, 3-11, 3-12. All those games, I was rooting for them to win.
Mm-hmm.
But once the Giants opened the door, this was a gotta have it lost. And if Josh Allen was playing, then I would say, all right, put Joe Milton out there and break loose. Actually, if Josh Allen was playing, I'd say put Drake May out there and let him loose. See what we can do at home.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, I would say a morale boosting home victory over Josh Allen would be significant. But if they're putting Mitch Trubisky out there and they're calling plays that are clearly meant to lose the game, you're punting from the 35. You then replace Mitch Trubisky after he gets a lead. Like this team, the Bills had no desire to win that game. In fact, they were actively trying to lose it because they knew what it would mean for their rival to get, rival is a strong word, but
division opponent
to get the number one pick. It's interesting. Patriots-Bills was never a rivalry because it was always one-sided in one direction. For the longest time, we owned that rivalry, and then it went straight to them owning it with no intermediate period of it being interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, even without that intermediate, like, oh, they're kind of getting good. I've never, like, hated the Bills.
No.
It's just the Jets I hate.
No, and the Bills are usually a team that I, like, loosely root for in the playoffs. Especially this year, I'm rooting for them because God help us all if Kansas City wins another Super Bowl. But we needed to lose this game. This was the number one pick was at stake. It was a huge moment for the franchise because, and maybe we don't spend that number one pick because we don't need a quarterback. We don't have the typical needs that go with the number one pick, and teams don't typically pick wide receiver at one. Like it's only been done thrice in history. But you can trade that pick back for some serious assets. That pick has so much inherent value.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about this offline, but 4 is just such an awkward spot to be at.
Yeah, like we're not gonna be able to get Travis Hunter. That's like that's the only guy I would want to take with like a top 4 pick. I think maybe McMillan.
Yeah,
but even then, like I don't think a lot of teams are going to prioritize him as much as the other players. Like he could probably get picked a little later than 4. But yeah, it's just,
and
I feel like any player is going to be a reach for us.
We're not in the position where we can draft a player like above their draft stock anymore.
Mm-hmm. No Cole Stranges.
Oh my God. No. I think Strange came back for the Chargers game, right?
Yeah, I think I saw him start. He was our starting center.
Yeah,
which was weird.
And that went great.
Yeah.
What a fun, entertaining game. That was probably the worst of the season because at least the Patriots had shown their and that was the problem with Mayo this season, that any little bit of momentum and now we're jumping here. Gerard Mayo was fired. What was your instant reaction?
I was cheering. I was very excited. Which is crazy because, like, I know at the beginning, like, when our first episode of this, we were like, we had high hopes and like we were excited for Mayo, just like see what he could do. Like, there was so much uncertainty. We were like, man, he's a Patriot, like, or at least I remember I was like that.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I don't know, like he's defensive minded. That's kind of outdated more so. Like a lot of the good coaches are like offensive, like geniuses. But now it's like, man, he went back on his words so much, didn't just name called the whole calling the team soft was wild. You'd never hear Bill do that. There was just he just wasn't like a steady, like stable force like a coach should be.
Yeah, he seemed in over his head,
Mm-hmm.
as happens to a lot of coordinators that turn to coaches. And in the case of Mayo, we don't even know how much of a coordinator he ever was. When you have Belichick running the show on defense, yeah, Mayo is probably doing some specific scheming, but it's a Belichickian defense. That's the reason why it's tough, and that's the reason why it's good, and that's the reason why you can plug and play almost anybody and still get a good output. And I think it was one frustrating element of the season was that the defense regressed. And there were games where the offense was carrying, which we hadn't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you said, we had both gone into this season with the assumption that this was, no matter what, this wasn't going to be a 1-year deal. But I think what I didn't anticipate, and I think same goes for you, is that Mayo wouldn't show any signs of adjustment, that this team would actually regress. And I wouldn't mind if we were 4-13 with kind of an upward arc towards the end of the season. But it was stretches of this team could clearly has some elements of a good team, but can never put it together all at once. Mm-hmm. You'd see games where the offense played well. You'd see games where the defense played well. Rarely did they ever play well at the same time. Rarely do you see, and it was the same mistakes repeating themselves. That was the most frustrating part. Mm-hmm. We lost games in similar manners time and time again, and you can't have that. Mm-mm. Were you surprised
about Mayo getting fired? Yeah. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, I thought it was going to be like Kraft considered it, but like, no, I can't fire this guy that I just hyped up and said we had him set to be our head coach when Bill retired. Like, he had a lot of good things to say about him, and it'd be like egg on his face if he fired him. But like, so I'm surprised, but I'm glad he did it. Like, just ripping that Band-Aid off, just showing like, no, we do not advocate like poor coaching. Like, we're not about that. So I'm glad he did that. Like, but very surprised. Like, yeah, very surprised.
Yeah, it's not often that you fire a head coach after their very first year of being a head coach. Mm-hmm. But exceptionally bad performances make for exceptional measures. Urban Meyer is an example of this. Mm-hmm. He just clearly didn't work out. It was obvious that he was not fit to be an NFL head coach, and he got fired. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that Mayo is quite there yet, that he can't ever be an NFL head coach, but I certainly don't think he's ready yet. Mm-hmm. I think he could be a good coordinator. Again, unclear how he would do in a coordinator role where he's not surrounded by the best defensive mind in NFL history. Mm-hmm. And that's why, I wish he had, I was hoping that he would take that Browns defensive coordinator job when he got it a few years ago, because if Mayo was to become head coach, I wanted him to get experience elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Kind of baby steps up. Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say that, these are Belichick system guys and they're not doing well. It's really more that Belichick is such a powerful presence on his team and dominates so much of what happens is that without him, you can't really tell what these guys would look like without Belichick because so much of what they do is dependent on him. And so, yeah, I think Kraft could see that it clearly wasn't working and that there was no sign of forward progress. Kraft has had issues taking accountability in the past, so I think it's a good sign that he was able to fire his own guy and admit basically that he made a mistake. Not necessarily in firing Belichick, but in hiring Mayo. So
he did it dang quick too. Like I doubt Mayo even left the stadium before he was like, "Yeah, you're done, buddy."
Yeah, it's like, seriously, man, you're gonna win.
You're gonna win, and then leave. Like, come on.
Well, if Mayo was told before the game, which maybe was a possibility, maybe he pulled a Lovie Smith and tried to intentionally screw the Patriots out of the top pick. I would do that if I was told before the game that I was fired. So maybe that's what happened. I don't know. Mayo wasn't the only person to go though. This one I would say was even more surprising for me. Because it feels hard to blame both of them at once. What was your reaction to this?
I was surprised too. Like I didn't expect him to get fired. The Mayo one was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Van Pelt actually showed like there were some days where he was cooking up like a good few drives, and I was like, oh, nice. This is like starting to get a little creative, looking good. Like he showed glimpses where like I don't know if I ever really saw that from Mayo. It was kind of just like I don't know. It was surprising. And it's hard to like do a lot with kind of a bunch of bums on your roster like we have.
That's the thing. We saw in Cleveland that he can coordinate an offense with good players around him. He didn't have to. There were no weapons that you could build a game plan around. An offensive coordinator in this day and age in the NFL needs a player that defenses need to game plan around. And we had players that did better than expected. You know, the tight ends both played really well all season. Kayshon Boutte was a unexpected surprise, but nobody's going into the film room being like, "All right, guys, we've got Kayshon Boutte next week. We really got to lock in here and put double coverage on him. Whatever it takes, stop Kayshon Boutte." You need a player that has that kind of presence. Almost every other team has that kind of player. A true signature weapon that is the center of an attack axis. And it can't just be the quarterback. Because, yeah, you could make an argument that Drake May was that player, but he needs someone to throw to. And the other reason that this was surprising to me was that, again, his role was offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. And Sunday especially was proof that he's a good quarterbacks coach because Milton played far better than he had in any of his preseason action. Drake May showed steady evolution throughout his tenure this season. I mean, the turnovers were a lingering issue, but that's to be expected for a rookie. I think he actually did a really good job developing May. I'm not sure that we would have seen this kind of season from May under an O'Brien or a Patricia, especially. But at the same time, there were moments of really conservative play calling. There were moments of head scratching late game decisions on offense that may have cost us the game. So there was a little bit of that too. So but at this point you're doing crazy amounts of retooling again. You're replacing your head coach for the second year in a row. You're replacing your offensive coordinator for the fourth year in a row because McDaniels to Patricia to for the fourth year in a row. You have to get those hires right. I think it's weird because the dialogue around every offseason in the past, like each of the last 3 offseasons, it's been all right. This is the most important offseason in Patriots franchise history. It felt like that last year. That was true last year, but it's true again. This is the most important offseason in Patriots history. And so where do you think the Patriots should go with these hires?
Are we just doing like realistically or like our dream scenario?
Let's do dream first.
I want Ben Johnson just from Detroit would be awesome. I know we're one of his 2. I don't know if it's like the only interviews or like first interviews or what. I know he's interviewing. I'm going to interview us and have an interview with the Bears, but he'd be awesome. He's been killing it with the Lions for, has he been the OC the past 2 years? I don't even remember.
Yeah, but, 2 or 3.
But I mean, their offense is like, I think they're like ranked 1 or 2 this year, and like last year they were really good too. But I mean, he's the super creative. You see the hook and ladder plays all the time, and I'm like, just imagine Kayshon Boutte catching it and pitching it to Douglas for 60-yard touchdowns. I say that kind of like jokingly, but also like there's just a creative element to it that I really like. So I don't know if he. I don't know if he'd make a great head coach or OC. I'm sure he wants a head coach position. So that'd be awesome. And then I know I've heard. I think Dable's on the hot seat, and I know he was like a big factor in the development of Josh Allen when he was still in Buffalo. So to have him, I know even watching like the Giants Hard Knocks, you could tell just how much he like loved Drake May, like interviewing him and stuff. So I'm sure he would. I'm sure he wouldn't mind coaching him, helping him out, whether it's quarterback's coach or offensive coordinator or something. Those are 2 guys I think of. I know. I think Covington or might be leaving, so I've heard also like not rumors of him, but Flores, I'm sure, has some interviews and openings in mind too. So if he were to be a defensive coordinator, still that would probably be ideal. Maybe not a head coach, but. Those are the 3 that I think of.
Yeah.
I'm not on the Vrabel train just because he's a defensive coach, and I'm not that that's such a bad thing, but it's kind of the league's changed a lot in the last 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's high-powered offenses are just becoming the norm. In the NFL these days, and like a lot of the best head coaches are either solely offensive minded or like well rounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like I look at a Harbaugh, and for me, he's very well rounded. Like he has both aspects of the game on his mind at all times. Andy Reid is definitely an offensive guy, but he's developed some sensibility for defense, and he's made the right hires at defensive or he has the right staff around him at defense now that Kansas City's playing well on both sides. The best teams in the NFL have at this point have a coach that at least is partially offensively minded.
Yeah, and it's like I think the guys who are like the well-rounded ones are like honestly the older coaches of like the Harbaugh brothers, Reed, and like Mike Tomlin. But all these young guys are like just offensive gurus who honestly come from that McVay tree.
Also, I want to know what Mike Tomlin is like, eats and drinks, because he looks the same as he did like 12 years ago.
I know. I'm like, are you 30 or are you 55?
It's uncanny. He's 52. He does
Is
not
he
look
really?
any different than he did like 12 years ago.
Wow.
All right, so I'm gonna list a few names for head coach in starting with an insane one and then going to more realistic. This is something that popped in my head like a few minutes ago as I was thinking about the transition Belichick is making from the NFL to college. Nick Saban. What if we hired Nick Saban as our head coach? The best to ever do it in college. The Bill Belichick of college football. I prefaced it, insane. But think about all the players that have, on both sides of the ball, that have come through Nick Saban.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of good players.
Some of our best. Barmore, Hightower, Damian Harris,
Cyrus Jones.
Yeah, that's an addition. I would not put that in the realistic category, sure, but it's an interesting thought. It's not impossible for teams to make proper transitions from or for coaches to make proper transitions from college to the NFL. Although I will say the other way around is definitely easier.
Mm-hmm.
Another college to NFL guy that has interested me a lot is Steve Sarkisian. I'm not sure that it'll be easy to pry him from Texas, but I feel like he would be a fantastic offensive coordinator for us.
Mm-hmm.
He does some really interesting and innovative things with his offenses at Texas, and that could be really interesting. On the more realistic side, yeah, I'm definitely with you on the Ben Johnson. I'll give you a name that I don't want, which is Byron Leftwich. That's been coming up a little bit. Sure, he's shown some ability in like specific quarterback management roles, but we have not seen him manage an offense fully. And until we see him do that and do that successfully, I don't think head coach makes sense. Rather than him, I'd rather have a guy like Vrabel who has shown the ability to lead a team to the playoffs outside of New England. A guy that's beaten Belichick.
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be like the low-hanging fruit, easy but not bad hire. Although it seems that one feels a little bit too similar to Mayo.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a slight step up from Mayo. Just the only difference being a little bit of experience.
Right. Like, both were previous linebackers for the Patriots. Like, awesome.
Yeah. And admittedly, both of them were all-time linebackers, but
mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not going to put Teddy Bruschi out there to coach the Patriots.
I would.
Like that's also true. He could be interesting. We have to keep it in the fan, I guess.
I know.
Has to be a former.
We just got to wait till Bryce Behringer retires.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
The owner of the Raiders. And commentator on Fox. And coach of the Patriots.
Julian Edelman and Gronk can be our coaches.
Ah, yes. I love Gronk to death. He'd be a terrible coach.
He'd be awful.
He'd be like, all right, guys, practice is canceled.
Or go drink. Go party.
Yeah. Our motto would be, do your job unless you don't want to.
Yeah. Do your job, but only if it's fun.
Yeah. That's the Jameis Winston way of life.
Do your job only if it's fun. But his job's always fun. Even if it's boring, he just makes it fun somehow.
Yeah. What an interesting fellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. There aren't obvious available candidates.
No.
For these positions. That's what makes it frustrating that this didn't work out. That this is not a rich coaching class.
Yeah. Like it's Ben Johnson and then like I don't know, not like scrapings, but like Ben Johnson's I feel like is really the only guy people are going to be like really trying hard to get.
Yeah, most of the other really good offensive coordinators are clearly being retained, and most of the good head coaches are just staying with their teams.
I thought of an interesting one though. I heard. What about like Cliff Kingsbury? I heard he might want to go somewhere else because I think what is he? He's just the offensive coordinator for Washington, right?
Yeah.
I've heard him up in rumors, and I've also heard McCarthy. I don't know if I'd want McCarthy, but Kingsbury would be interesting because I think did he have Patriots ties too?
Who, Kingsbury?
Yeah, I can't remember. I thought he
something
did.
Feels familiar. No, he played for us, right?
I thought he did.
I know we drafted him. I don't know how much he actually ended up playing for us.
Well, I was sitting here, I was like, I couldn't think if it was Cliff Kingsbury or if I was getting O'Connell mixed up. And then I'm like, oh, wait, it's both of them.
No, we drafted him.
Yeah.
He didn't play.
Yeah.
But he got a Super Bowl ring.
But that would be interesting. Like, obviously, his tenure didn't really do, like, work out in Arizona, but...
Again, a guy with a really good offensive mind. I would definitely be interested in having him as an offensive coordinator, but I don't see why he would move from Washington. It's a dream situation from him the way JD is playing.
He'd probably only want to move if it was a head coach position again.
But a few analysts have been saying this, and I think it's true. The way Drake May has been playing, the Patriots are a underratedly prime destination for a prospective coach or offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would want to see what you can do with that. Because you don't see – it's a rare combination. You don't see many 4-13 teams with a franchise quarterback in really good form.
I know.
Because usually those teams make it work.
Like, I'd even make an argument that's like, yeah, Caleb's on a 4-13 team, or I guess 5 and 12 or whatever team. But it's like he had so much talent around him and still couldn't get it done. Like, Drake's got nobody.
Also, the Bears locking in to beat the Packers when their draft position was at stake, just out of pure spite, is pretty funny.
That was awesome.
I respect that win. I respect. I'm like, it's your rival. You want to spite them? Go ahead and spite them.
Living in Green Bay, that was a wild thing for like just hearing from everybody like the next day of just like there were people who were like, well, like it didn't really matter because the Commanders won for like seeding wise, but they were still mad because it was just the Bears.
Yeah,
it was awesome. I knew it was going to be gritty. Like it didn't matter, but it's like the Bears, like we just have to beat the Packers. But
and like I don't know, that win felt like it had some dignity. It had some like the thing that made me angry about this win is that it was you don't gain anything about like when you beat a team that was clearly trying to lose, like the Bills. Again, if the Bills were giving it their all, because my initial stance on that game when I thought Josh Allen was going to play it for his MVP candidacy and stuff, was that you don't want to build a losing culture. You don't want rooting for a loss to become any kind of normal. Go ahead and try your best. But in a situation like that where the other team is clearly trying to bait you into going for a win, you can't take that bait.
I know. I was so frustrated when I saw Allen come on the field. I was like, yes, he's playing. Takes one snap. No.
And May does the same thing. Now looking back at this season, I want we've talked a little bit about the last week and what's happened, but zooming out, what was your favorite and least favorite moment of the season?
I think my favorite moment was probably the Patriots win over the Bears, just because I was there. So it was just like it was just a cool experience, just being the odd man out, like just a few Patriots fans in Chicago, and then watching, I guess, just them win. It was an ugly game, so it wasn't like a spectacular game to watch, but it was still a win, and I was in person, so that was probably the best moment. And the worst,
you're spoiled for choice.
I know. I'm just like, there's so many really bad ones. I'm trying to think which one may be the maddest. Okay, I think the worst was probably the Chargers game was pretty bad. We got whooped on, and then just like seeing Lad McConkey just going off, and then we're just like, we could have drafted him, but then we trade back and just take Polk instead. And then just like you look at the two seasons comparatively, it's like it's pretty infuriating that like another season, another instance of us just being incapable of picking good receivers. Because I'm pretty sure I don't remember the exact stat line, but I remember he carved us up pretty good. I think he had 2 touchdowns against us or something, but Lad's really good, and he's going to be really good for a long time, and he would have easily been our number 1 receiver. So I think that's probably like the worst. I'm just like watching him ball out and being like, as a Patriots fan, sitting there cheering for us to grab Lad, and then they don't. And then like I'm proven right by like how good he is.
Yeah. I like the choice of the Bears game because, as I recall, it was the only game where we were dominant in any way.
Yeah. I think we had like 9 sacks or 7 or something stupid. Like we had
it was 9.
Killed them.
And like this was a Bears team that had been at least somewhat humming on offense all season. Like they put up decent point totals, and we limited them to 3. It was a uncharacteristically good defensive performance all around. Which frustrating that we have performances like that and can't follow them up. Felt the same way about when we beat the Jets. That was also a special moment. And my favorite moment of the season, and this was actually in a loss, was that final play against Tennessee.
To Ramondre.
The crazy Drake May buying time for himself in the pocket, and pulling off a very a play that not many other quarterbacks in the league could pull off. Like Allen, Mahomes, Jackson, that may be the list.
Zappy.
Oh yeah, of course. Underrated tank commander of last year.
I know.
We gotta give Mac Jones his due for his role in landing a Drake May. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people that deserve a lot of credit, other than, of course, the main tank commander. All hail Chad Ryland.
All hail the tank commander. Yeah, Chad Ryland. I
think one of the most hilarious parts of the season was finding out that Chad Ryland is actually a good kicker.
I know, he's like killing it for the Cardinals. Yeah. Had a couple of game winners. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I'm like simultaneously angry, like, come on, Chad, you couldn't have done this for us last year, but also like, all right, you knew your role.
We got us Drake May, but it cost us a 4th-round pick in the previous year to get it.
That's true.
All right, but
It's worth it.
no, that's a good moment. I was thinking about that, but I just kind of shifted away from it just because we still lost it.
Yeah. I think the reason I picked that moment is that it was kind of in that moment where I'm like, all right, we have our quarterback. That was that was the moment where the doubt of like, all right, well, he's promising, but he could still show some things. It was in that moment I was like, Patriots have their franchise quarterback. We can now build around him. It's an important moment to kind of know for sure that, all right, you have your guy and you can now stop thinking about the quarterback position for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Least favorite moment. Boy. There are a lot. I'm going to go with the Jaguars game because it came out of nowhere. That team got blown out by the Bears, who we destroyed. They were playing their second consecutive week in London. They were looking horrible. We were actually looking decent for once. Things were looking a little promising with Drake May. And then we let the Jaguars offense look like the Bills. It was in that, and that was a game where I had a different kind of epiphany of, wow, it doesn't seem like Mayo knows how to adjust.
We couldn't stop the run, which we were like elite at the year before.
Yeah.
And for whatever, like Brian Thomas.
But this was without ETN where we couldn't stop the run.
I know. And Brian Thomas is good, but he was given.
It's not as good as we made him look
all game. So yeah, that was a rough week. I was almost certain that was going to be a win.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even close, which was dumb too.
Yeah, we got blown out of the water after taking it, and that after taking a 10-0 lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one game where we finally weren't playing catch up half the time.
Right.
But people that are watching, you're welcome to choose your moments. I'm sure whatever you have to say is equally as bad as this. There was a lot to choose from. There were a lot of lows.
A lot of lows. It's been only like a handful of seasons like this, and it's getting old, which is, I know, a super like stupid thing to say as a Patriots fan. Like we had like just 15 years of greatness. Now I'm complaining, but it does get old.
You got to throw some mediocrity in there to like let us adjust. You can't just go straight from we have the greatest quarterback of all time and are perennially getting a 1-3 seed and contending for the Super Bowl to horrible, horrible football.
Oh, we kind of did. We had that one Cam Newton season.
I'm convinced if Cam Newton hadn't gotten COVID, we would have been in the playoffs that year.
He was kind of good.
He looked great. And then I don't know if it was the hiatus or the COVID specifically, but something took the wind out of his sails and he stopped being able to play football.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, really, really wonderful and fun season that I'm looking forward to running back and seeing if we can replicate the magic of 2025.
It's all gloom and negativity right now, but it's like I guarantee I'm going to be excited once like the new season starts and the draft rolls around. Like
I'm going to be excited if we have a good offseason. We need to be aggressive. Take the low-hanging fruit, the obvious good players. I think there has in the Belichick era you could get away with some cutesy like he's a project, but we see something in him. He could be really interesting.
Yeah.
You don't have the bandwidth to do that anymore.
Mm-mm.
If everybody is saying this is a good player in a position that you need, just take him.
Mm-hmm. Just
Um,
do the right thing. Don't try and reach down for your guy because he's a patriot.
and there are multiple ways to do the right thing. You can trade back to like 8 or 9 and get a Will Campbell. You can trade back to a 12 pick or something and get a Luther Burden. You could trade up to the third. I mean, now that you have screwed yourselves out of the top 3 pick, you could trade into that third pick and go after Travis Hunter. That's not completely out of the realm of possibility. So there are things you can do
for pick 3.
There you go. Who has the third pick right now?
Cleveland.
I'm sure they could use.
Or I think no, Cleveland has 2. New York has 3. The Giants have 3. So
Cleveland's probably going to take Travis Hunter with 2.
Probably. It'll probably go Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and then Shedeur, I'm sure.
Well, why take Shedeur when you can have Joe Milton instead? Who has one entire games of more of NFL experience than Shedeur does.
And he can do backflips.
That's right. And he's not a nepo guy. He's earned his way.
He earned his way. He's got swag, as the kids say these days.
Yes. He's got the Riz.
He's got the Riz. All jokes aside, though, he does look so cool out there. I'm like, this guy is awesome. Like, we need to keep him on our team. He's like and down in his chain. I'm like, this guy is sweet.
Unless we can get a really good value for him, I don't see any reason to get rid of him.
I think he's a perfect backup.
Promising 6th-round pick. He's a backup, but he's also a guy that has some specific uses.
Mm-hmm.
There could be some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, for sure.
Little wildcat, little creative play calling. Which actually brings me to one of the names I forgot when I was talking about coach options, but we talked about this offline. Josh McDaniels could be an interesting practical one.
Mm-hmm.
He's really the only guy in the last 10, 15 years who has consistently worked out as the Patriots offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think this time teams are going to make the mistake of reading into that and saying he'll be a good head coach. They should have learned by now that is just not the case.
Yeah, that Raiders scenario is kind of the nail in the coffin.
But you look at what Mac Jones was able to do under Josh McDaniels, and that makes me salivate at what Drake May could do under him.
For real. Yeah, I forgot that was McDaniels during his rookie year.
That year had us all thinking that Mac Jones was the franchise quarterback.
And then Patricia showed.
Yeah. I'm not convinced that had we been able to keep McDaniels and made some other decisions that Mac Jones wouldn't still be our quarterback and playing quite well. Mm-hmm. Patricia broke that.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's playing horribly. I'm always curious. So when I find out that he's playing, I'll tune into the Jag game for a little bit, and it's sad to see what he's become.
Just a noodle-armed backup.
Yeah,
he's so he's the way he throws too. Though it's just like he doesn't move his feet. He just stands there. It's just kind of you're boring.
But he was moving his feet his first year. He is his time with Patricia and O'Brien had got him into some really bad habits that he hasn't been able to shake. Because the one thing that everybody was saying is that Mac may not have the most electric arm, but he's a smart guy. He makes intelligent decisions. Mm-hmm. But that became his biggest weakness, where he would make throws that made no sense, wasn't throwing with the proper mechanics. All these things that we had said, all right, well, Mac Jones has the fundamentals, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's really important that we got this offensive coordinator hire, right? Because we do not want this to happen again, where a player has a promising rookie season and then gets ruined by a bad offensive coordinator. Now, Drake May is not Mac Jones, but again, Mac Jones was a good quarterback at some point in his career. You have to surround Drake, with the right mentors. You have to surround him with the right players.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100%.
So I'm curious about something. I'm curious if you were to give this last year's draft an overall grade, what would it be?
Like a D. The only good thing we got out of it was Drake. It'd be an F if we took, well, I wouldn't say it'd be an F if we took anybody else. But
I think Joe Alt could have been good.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. Like, he's playing well. But I mean, Polk, I know it's too soon because it's been 1 year, but it's a miss. I don't even think he has more than 100 receiving yards.
Yeah.
Like the linemen, like, yeah, they're more projects, but like I wouldn't say that they've shown enough promise for us to be like, man, like maybe we have something here. But I mean, yeah, Joe Milton's shown that he's got upside. Like, that's kind of cool. Jaheim Bell made a couple plays on Sunday also. But like as of like instant like playmakers, or like these can be some franchise guys, like it's just Drake May. So he's the only reason it's not an F.
I would agree. It was not a good draft. Especially when you look at it from the angle of what we could have gotten. Last year, we could have gotten Puka in the Chatter Island spot. This year, we could have gotten McConkey in the Polk spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always felt that McConkey was a better and more reliable player than Polk.
I really liked McConkey. Like, he was one of like my favorite like round 2 guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think everybody's attention was on Brock Bowers when it came to Georgia's offense, that I feel like people almost forgot just how good McConkey was there.
Mm-hmm.
You said you don't think Jalen Polk had 100 receiving yards, right?
Yeah, isn't it like 80 something?
Yeah, 87. 12 receptions for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns.
That's like Kayshon Bouttie's week. That was Kayshon Boutte on Sunday.
I want you to guess how many targets those 12 receptions came on.
16 targets. No, it's a lot more.
33.
He had a lot of drops.
33 targets. 12 catches on 33 targets. That is just abysmal. And we knew this. Like, this is not a surprising number. He dropped plenty of passes and made plenty of incorrect routes. It just didn't fit the bill.
But man, for a guy who everyone was saying is like just a safe pick, like he played so bad.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams had a horrible rookie season, and everyone thought he was a bust. And he had 38 catches for 446 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. I think when you talk about drafts, the consolation prize is just how good last year's 6th round was, because our top 2 receivers in terms of yardage came from those 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And tied for our top touchdown getters.
And also that we need to keep Hunter Henry around as long as we can. I also need to
I like this tight end duo. I feel like this is the one that has worked.
Mm-hmm.
Henry has had now 3 different partners in Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki, and Austin Hooper. And Austin Hooper seems to be the one that we're able to actually reliably run tight end sets with.
Which is incredibly frustrating because Jonnu Smith had a career year right after leaving.
Yeah.
But
it helps to have the kind of decoys and other attention grabbers that
that's true.
Smith has now. I think that, you really find out how good a player is when they play in New England because they're forced to actually be your primary focus. That's how we found out that no, KJ Osborne isn't actually a great receiver.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson just hogs so much attention that Osborne gets open a lot.
Right.
You look at this wide receiver room. It's just a bunch of wide receiver 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. What would be your dream signing for this offseason?
Dream signing? My dream signing would it has to be for like players, you mean?
Yeah.
T. Higgins has to be our priority. I don't know how likely it is. We have so much cap space. I've talked about it episode to episode. T. Higgins, Ronnie Stanley from Baltimore is also a free agent. I doubt they let him walk, but if for whatever reason they do, and we can entice him, that would be awesome. And then I can't remember his name, but I think he's a guard for Kansas City who's also a free agent. His name escapes me, but I think a couple years ago he like slipped to the 6th round because he had like blood clots or something in his lungs.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I can't place the name right now.
Let me see real quick. But I know he's young and a free agent. So I think obviously that would be super, just like a nice luxury to have, of just like being able to pick some of these like tackles and guards and stuff. So those are the 3 guys. I think an underrated signing would be like a Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Chris Godwin. I would put the impact of that on par with the T. Higgins. Just the only difference being the injury luck.
Trey Smith was his name. It also hurts me looking at that Chiefs roster and seeing Joe Thuney sitting there.
Yeah. What we could have had, man. Joe Thuney, Ted Karras, Shaq Mason, all on the team.
But yeah, those are the guys I'm thinking of. I can't think of any other like really big names that are coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. Godwin was the one that was on my mind, other than Higgins. Such an underrated wide receiver.
I think he'd do well in New England too, because he'd probably like operate as like the big slot guy.
Yeah, and he's versatile. He can also go on the outside and catch those deep throws and play that role. And I mean, he would kind of have to be that guy if he gets signed in New England, because pretty much whoever we sign, unless they're somehow worse than who we have now,
right,
automatically get put in that wide receiver 1 role.
Right. How far into the season did he tear his ACL or wreck his knee or whatever it was? It was towards like the middle of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, like maybe 2/3 of the way in.
Okay.
Because wasn't it? It was in like late November. No, late October.
So he could, in theory, like if he made a quick recovery, like be ready by the time the season rolls around then, huh?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind Godwin. He'd be a lot cheaper than Higgins too.
If you need a value pick, or if the value around Higgins is too high, that is an option for sure.
Let's see who else we have. I don't really think there's for receivers. Free agency is it's not very good. Zay Jones, Noah Brown, Deontay Johnson, Hollywood Brown, Diggs, Amari Cooper. Yeah, I think out of those guys, like the only ones I would really be interested in is Higgins and Godwin.
Diggs could be interesting. I mean, obviously from a talent perspective, he's right up there with all these names, but
I just think him and Keenan Allen are just kind of on their way out. Like he'll be 31. I think Allen's 32. They're both free agents.
yeah, that is true. I think we do need some long-term security here, especially since drafting wide receivers just continues to be a problem.
Right.
And that's another thing with the whole I wouldn't mind if we prioritize that first pick on a really good offensive lineman, because I just have serious doubts about our ability to properly draft receivers.
Yeah. I know. I'm scared of we got Tet. He's probably going to be a bust now because he's a Patriot.
We'd also go for a Brandon Cooks reunion.
Oh, gosh. He's a free agent too.
And we mentioned this name before, but not as your primary receiver signing, but if you want to sign a second guy, Darius Slayton is an interesting one for me.
I do like Darius Slayton.
I feel like he'd be putting up a lot better numbers on a real offense, which he's not had this year.
And he'll reunite with Daboll once we get him too.
Yeah. There you go. Thinking ahead. Yes, Daboll offensive coordinator with Nick Saban head coach. There we go.
Slayton though would be awesome because he's a good deep ball guy. We don't have a good deep ball guy, and that's where Drake he likes to push the ball downfield. Booty's kind of been that, but he's not a separator at all.
Well, yeah, we've also Drake May's had a lot of deep touchdowns in stride. Mm-hmm. What we haven't really seen anybody able to do for Drake May is get up there and catch those 50-50 balls.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's been part of the play calling because we don't have that kind of guy. So I'm glad that we haven't gone for those kinds of throws.
Mm-hmm.
From a physicality standpoint, it seemed like Jalen Polk could have been that guy, and he had a couple of really nice almost catches on 50-50 balls.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, Polk was the king of the epic almost catch.
The epic college catches.
Yeah. That's the thing. I wonder if teams look into it all. I'm sure they have to. What percentage of a player's catches were with 1 versus 2 feet down?
You what?
I wonder if when coaches are scouting wide receivers, they're looking at things like what percentage of your catches were with 1 versus 2 feet down.
Oh, I'm sure they do. They have to. That's such a. I don't know why the college level doesn't do 2 feet in bounds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's frustrating. There's just so many. There's so many needs right now. It's hard to tell where to go first. I was also thinking about maybe getting the Patriots maybe getting a free agent corner, but this corner class is also not great.
Mm-mm. We could, and I was also thinking of because it is weak. Who they have? What's his name? Who's the DB out of Michigan that's going to be a top 10 pick? Is it Will something. There's a lot of Wills, I think.
Yeah.
Will Johnson, is it?
That
Yeah.
sounds right. Yeah. I would, and you know, with the Gonzo pick, we've shown that we can make good decisions in early rounds at cornerback. Marcus Jones was also a good pick who has matured quite a bit this season. Boy, I'd love to see him be used in offense this year.
Mm-hmm. But like, if we were to do like a Will Johnson in the first, and then get like Isaiah Bond in the second, I wouldn't complain about that.
That could be really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Second round wide receivers seem like a bit of a curse, but then again,
Yeah.
so does first round. So,
But the thing with the second round receivers is like, oh, like these guys that are panning out are like guys that every other scout had a second round grade on. Like McConkey, oh, he was a first round, second round grade. And then they're like Polk, like, oh yeah, we had like a late third on him.
you know who else was a second round pick? Aaron Dobson.
The Marshall King.
You don't really think about the picks that went wrong during the Brady era because Brady covered it all up. But that was a horrible pick.
Another one I think of is Josh Boyce was a pretty bad one.
Yes. I want to say that was the same draft.
I think it was. I think he was a fourth rounder though.
Yeah.
Was it Bethel Johnson was bad too?
Yeah, I think he ended up just being a special teamer.
Yeah.
And not a great one either. We could also draft that punter from Bowling Green that I showed you that has a really good arm.
Actually, I saw that. That was actually their third string quarterback. It was a trick play because he wore number 19 and the punter was 18, and no one on the defense noticed it.
That makes more sense then.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, geez, that punter.
I was like, that's an absurdly good arm for a punter.
I know.
We should see if our goat Bryce Behringer can throw the ball at all.
Oh, I bet he can.
He probably just doesn't want to take the spotlight away from Drake May. So
no, he's a good guy. He's like, I'll just keep bombing these kicks inside the 10. I'll cop and kick these guys.
Lots of needs, not enough time, not enough picks, not enough money, but we can see what we can do.
That's all we can do.
We're going to continue to be with y'all throughout the offseason and predict what's going to happen. We're going to follow y'all through the draft, the free agency news, all the speculation, all the way up to training camp. And since you don't have the pain of the season to endure, you can just enjoy wildly speculating with us with crazy theories like Nick Saban as the coach of the New England Patriots.
That would be so wild if he was.
Hilarious.
Awesome.
I know I'm the one who proposed it, but I would be pretty angry if we did that. I would be like, come on, be serious.
Yeah, I don't know what I would think. I haven't even considered it. I think I would just be flabbergasted.
It's gonna be really interesting because we're overhauling like a good portion of the coaching staff, and probably like close to a third, if not more, of the roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be a completely different team again.
Who would you place the franchise tag on if you were to place it?
Oh gosh, actually, to be honest, I haven't even looked at who our free agents are at this point.
That's an underrated part of it. we keep talking about adding players. We're not going to keep everybody we have right now.
Let me see. Oh, that's not right. That was 2024. I just saw.
Jonathan Jones is a underrated one. I think we're going to have to really, and I think Jonathan Jones is starting. His age is starting to catch up with him a little bit. He was a little inconsistent this season, but it would still be a big loss. He's had a lot of experience in our system, and he's done very well. Hooper is a free agent. We definitely should try to renew him.
Probably Dietrich Wise too.
Also, speaking of free agents, Brendan Schooler made the Pro Bowl, so big congratulations on that.
Good. He was good. I gotta get a Schooler jersey.
Exceptional special teamer, like a very good successor option for Matt Slater, and Slater has clearly been mentoring him over the last couple weeks. Couple years. But yeah, I guess there's not too much in terms of marquee talent in free agency. It helps when you have no talent.
Yeah. So I think, Jones has got to be the priority for sure.
Yeah.
Which isn't saying much because that's not like you said, like a marquee, like we need him.
An underrated one is Daniel Ekuale. I feel like I felt that he had a really strong season. His role increased with the injury to Barmore, keeping him out for extended periods of time, and he took to it pretty well. And we don't know what the future is with Barmore, just because blood clots are a very unpredictable thing. I definitely think we should try to keep Ekuale on. But yeah, I would say the rest of I would say Jones, Hooper, Ekuale are guys we should try to keep, but not much else there. I think earlier in the season, if you had asked me, I would have said we should definitely re-sign Joey Sly. Right now, I'm in more of a take it or leave it mindset with him. He clearly has a really good leg, but at the same time, he has shown himself to miss some pretty gimme field goals. Almost made that kick to break the NFL record against Indianapolis, but then missed a 30-yarder that would have made that pick meaningless.
And he's so cool.
Yeah. The beard. It's such strong beard game.
And the tats and just being just like jacked.
He reminds me of a cooler version of what George Kittle looks like.
Yeah. He doesn't have that nasty mullet or whatever Kittle's got.
Maybe he can throw too. Let's see who all on our team can throw the ball.
Open competition. Open QB competition.
Also, we were talking a little bit about some of the underrated misses of the last couple of years. I think trading letting Jacoby Myers go and signing Juju Smith-Schuster for sure is near the top of that list.
I try not to think about that, but just like seeing how like he has like the lowest like drop percentage in the league is just like we could really use that.
Yeah, so many drop catches this year for the Patriots. It's good to have an old reliable guy like that. It's what I thought Bourne was, and he was at times this season. We'll see if now that he'll be playing a full season, he can recover some of the football that made him the player he was in his first couple of years with the Patriots. We've got a lot of that kind of receiver of like theoretically could be decent, but we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Got to start going for the definitely is good because we've seen him play well.
Right. We've seen him moss people and score touchdown after touchdown like we want you on our team kind of guy.
Exactly. Well, we will see what happens. We'll be here to recap all of the action throughout the offseason. And what's your Super Bowl pick?
I think I'm gonna go. I think the Lions beat the Bills. That's what I'm gonna go with. That's what I've been hoping for, just because it's like just two franchises who have just had bad luck. I want one. I kind of hope one of them wins it.
I have the same matchup and the opposite outcome. I have Bills narrowly beating the Lions. I think the difference between Josh Allen and Jared Goff is gonna show in that game if it's played.
Yeah, I think that would be the funnest matchup we would be able to get. If it's a Chiefs game, it's going to be boring.
And then Ben Johnson's going to be so frustrated with that loss that he's going to be like, all right, I'm going to prove myself. I don't want anything to do with Dan Campbell anymore. I'm going to go to New England and build that franchise from the ground up.
He's going to sit there and be like, man, if I had Drake May manning the offense instead of Jared Goff, we would have won by 100.
Yeah. Who needs Amon-Ra St. Brown? We have Kayshon Boutte.
Jahmyr Gibbs, what? We have JaMychal Hasty.
That's right. Same, Jim.
Say it starts with a J. Fast.
Have you seen that there's a Jahmyr Gibbs lover fan page just like the Drake May one?
Yeah, it's so
hilarious. I saw a Davis Mills one.
Ew.
That was wild.
That's actually hilarious, though.
I kind of want to look into like what content are you using to promote this guy?
What obscure fan pages are there?
We could totally create. I'm sure it's not there. We could totally create a Bryce Behringer fan page.
That would be awesome.
Or even a Tank Commander Chad Ryland fan page. But we don't focus on his good picks. We'll just show like something Drake made as well, and then say all hail the Tank Commander.
All hail Tank Commander. That's right. In like monotone, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
All right, Patriots Nation, when you watch this, let us know your Super Bowl picks. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week, everybody.